what I'm doing within that is a 10-day point-to-point endurance challenge, if you like, that's going to connect teenage and young adult cancer centres across the UK. A 24-year-old undergoing treatment for a tumour, struggling to even walk, short of breath, confidence no good. He'd been told that he might even end up bedbound sort of forever. And as he walked around and chatted to people, he realised that he wasn't thinking about his tumour anymore. But I did have a number of years in and out of the oncology ward at Birmingham Children's Hospital. I was lucky enough, although going through treatments, medications, tests, surgeries, that anything that I had was going on was found to be benign. But as a young person, seeing the things that I did there, I wonder whether that has led me down to the path that I'm living.
Welcome back to this week's episode of the Toughest Finish Line podcast with me, Jen Dome. This week, we are sharing the story of a lady who found that sport helped her mental health, and she is now currently training for a huge sporting challenge, not just for herself, but to massively help others who are going through their own toughest finish lines. Stay tuned for huge inspiration, as well as tips and ideas for supporting your own training and mental resilience. So welcome to the show, Anna Powell. Anna, thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. So I'm going to jump straight in because you contacted me and shared what incredible sporting challenge you are currently training for, and asked whether you could come on the podcast, which was so lovely. And as soon as I read your story, I was like, yes, this is perfect. We'd love to have you on. So shall we start there with what are you currently training for? What is that challenge that you've set yourself?
All right. So like I say, thank you so much for having me. It's really, the reason I contacted is I'm trying to get as much exposure as I can for the wonderful charity that I actually work for. I work for Move Against Cancer charity, and we are 10 this year. And we have a big campaign launching soon for us all to move more together against cancer. And that's all of us, whether we are living with cancer, recovering from cancer, impacted by cancer, which I think the very vast majority of us, unfortunately, can say that we are. And there's so many things going on this year to celebrate that theme. So if that is something that resonates people throughout this chat, the socials can let people know how to get involved. But what I'm doing within that is a 10-day point-to-point endurance challenge, if you like, that's going to connect teenage and young adult cancer centres across the UK. And that's obviously to mark the 10th anniversary of the charity. And that point-to-point journey is going to be powered by cycling, running and swimming. So it'll move between cycling and running stages, really, with short relatively, but symbolic 2K open water swims at some key locations throughout Scotland, England and Wales. The project goes through. But I almost hope that each day, it's not like I'm not trying to break any records or anything like that. I know you've had some amazing record breakers on your podcast, but I hope that each day offers an opportunity for public engagement, community to join me along the way. We're lucky enough at Move to have over 600 ambassador volunteers, so I hope that lots of them can come and join me as well. Potentially hospital visits as we connect these cancer care centres, and a little bit of storytelling for the young people, which I'm sure we'll come on to, that the charity work with. So just to celebrate this charity's 10-year journey, really, and the 10 years that's to come.
I mean, it's a pretty huge challenge, but with such a lovely aim behind it to raise that awareness of cancer and linking those hubs together. And so, how many miles is this roughly that we're talking about?
Yeah, so I'm working quite a lot at the moment on the logistics side of things. As you can imagine, it's actually more difficult for my brain than the training. But around about 900, I think we've estimated over the 10 days at the
Wow.
moment. So, and I know we live in a world, and I mean, where there's the most incredible and unbelievable things going on, and people do multi-day things forever and ever, and 100 Ironmans in a row and stuff like that. But this is bigger than anything I personally have ever taken on before. Um, so yeah, very, very exciting indeed. But around about 900 miles, I think, at the moment.
Which is huge, and it's such a big challenge. But basically, swim, bike, running around the UK, raising that awareness, and as you say, having that
Yeah.
community element that people can come and join you. And so, can people come and run and cycle sections with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly hope so. And also swim. Um, because I'm not going for any particular paces or anything like that, the aim is to celebrate that joy of movement and show that we can
Yeah.
all move in a way that feels good for us. And that's the reason, really, where I come from. Well, I train for triathlon at the moment anyway. And so naturally, for me, it was swim, bike, run. But really what we want to do across this whole campaign and what Move are all about is celebrating the different ways in which we move. And that might
Yeah.
be Bollywood dancing, it might be yoga, it might be roller skating, it might be having a disco in the kitchen with your family, it might be walking the
Yeah.
dog. Um, and so, like I say, not out to break any records, but just celebrating different ways in which we can move. And that doesn't have to be fast. This is far, but it doesn't have to be far. It's
Yeah.
just whatever way that feels good for you with wherever you're at, whether you're on a cancer journey or not.
Yeah, yeah, and it's the big message behind this podcast is how much movement can help so many different challenging
Yeah.
situations that you're going through in life, whether that's mental health, which I know we will speak a little bit about later on, whether it's physical disabilities, whatever you're going through, it hugely helps. So I just love the campaign, and you are doing it from a background with working with people who are going through cancer, so having diagnosis and all the treatment. And I know that when we spoke, you had a couple of cases that you said you'd be happy to talk through as an example of the amazing work that you do. So do you want to just talk us through one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. It might make a little bit of sense to give a little bit more background to a couple of the things that Move do, I guess. So I'm a cancer rehabilitation specialist for young people. Um and you will hopefully it will come across in this. I could talk about it all day. I'm so deeply passionate about the work that we do and
Yeah.
care so much about our message. But there's a number of different arms to what Move do, and that ranges from a movement hub filled with resources that are specifically targeted at physical activity around a cancer experience, some community outreach work. Listeners might have heard of 5K Your Way, which we almost term as like a support group with a
Yeah.
difference, if you like, all around movement. And that's hosted by Parkruns on the last Saturday of every month, where that can look like whatever you want it to. You don't have to be able to run 5K. It might be 1K. You might go and volunteer. You might go for coffee and cake. Um, and that's for anybody that's impacted by cancer. So you don't have to be living with cancer or anything like that, or even
Mm,
recovering from. That's just whatever feels good that day, that underlying message again. But my biggest involvement, if you like, within the charity is for our online rehabilitation program for 13 to 30-year-olds.
right.
Um, and so what I do primarily is to work with the young people that are referred to as on a very, very individualized and bespoke program. When they are referred to as either self-referred or from their healthcare professionals, they are allocated a cancer rehab instructor, and we work with them
Hmm.
wherever they are at. And that might be not moving at all, having never moved before, or they might be a semi-professional athlete that's been through a cancer experience but could just do with a little bit of guidance as to how to get back firing on
Yeah.
all cylinders because they've just finished treatment or something like that. And so there's a huge range of people there, but there's so many stories that I
Oh, I
could
bet.
tell you about, the young people that we work with in Move as a whole, but I've got a couple, I suppose. And I think when we talk about cancer recovery, we often focus on the treatment, the
Mhm.
scans, the surgery, the medications that come. But I guess our stories really show what happens outside the hospital,
Yeah.
um, shows the power of movement and community. And so one of those examples that springs to mind is a 24-year-old who we've worked with relatively recently, and I won't obviously say names, but
Yeah.
undergoing treatment for a tumour, struggling to even walk, short of breath, confidence no good. Um, He'd been told that he might even end up bedbound sort of forever. So when his cancer nurse suggested he tried 5K your way with Move, his first reaction, as it quite often is, understandably, at a time when somebody's going through a cancer experience, that is not for me. Why would I
Yeah.
want to think about exercising right now when life around me is so
Mm.
turbulent? And this is where the mental health aspect comes in, I think, because I could talk all day about the physical activity benefits of
Yeah.
um, doing some movement whilst you're on a cancer journey, but the mental health benefits of taking control of your health in some way at a time that feels so out of control is huge. But and eventually, this young man, with a bit of persistence from his nurse and his partner, actually, his girlfriend, he gave it a go. And what he found was not sort of pressure, it wasn't competition, it wasn't, I've got to go today and run 5K or even walk 5K. It was go at your own pace, stop when you need to, you're moving in your way.
Right.
Um, and as he walked around and chatted to people, he realized that he wasn't thinking about his tumor
Yeah.
anymore. And it was the same an event that I was chatting with some young people at in Oxford at the weekend, where they suddenly find that, okay, they do want to go to groups where they meet young people of a similar age to them because they feel very different to a lot of the young people around them. And when they go into hospital for their treatment, they're surrounded by, 70-year-olds,
Mhm.
80-year-olds that are
Yeah.
diagnosed with cancer, for example. Um, but they also want to go and talk about, in quotation marks, normal
Normal.
stuff
Yeah.
with people their age, rather than lots of people around them asking about their cancer, how they're doing, that kind of thing. So I remember them saying he wasn't thinking about his tumor, he wasn't worrying about his treatment. And by the end, he'd walked the full 5K, somebody that nobody, including himself, thought that he would do the first time. And he continued to go. And weeks later, first day, he was fitter, he was more confident in his body, in himself, and even thinking about running it at some point. And the most wonderful thing that I can really remember a young person saying to me is, and this is just links back to, we all take this so for granted, and we've all experienced it before when we felt ill and we're like, I'm never going to take for granted my health again and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. But a young person saying to me, I feel normal again. And what is normal? None of us know what
Yeah.
normal is, but I feel normal again. I
Then.
forget that I was ever unwell. And I think that's just beautiful. One of the beautiful things
Yeah.
about the the work that we do.
Yeah, no, it's such a lovely, lovely role that you play in helping those people on a mental side. Yeah, yeah. Everybody talks about the physicalities of treatment, and obviously that is all brutal in itself. But we know the power of the mind and power of movement in helping the mind. So that charity of linking those two things together is huge. And, on a personal level, I was very lucky. I mean, I was diagnosed with skin cancer a few years back, and I had 2 rounds of surgery, sorry. And I thankfully, touch wood, I was all good. I didn't need any wider training, but it does just take over everybody's thinking. And my family, I remember having to tell them, and I had to tell my parents over the phone, and that phone call will stay with me forever because the knock-on effect it has into their lives as well. So
Mm.
what you were saying about, yes, it is the young people themselves, but it's also the impact that has on, for example, that guy's partner, his girlfriend, must have been
Yeah.
huge. So it's so much bigger than just that individual, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And to be able to just focus your attention on
Mm.
something different. And I can't emphasize enough how much it doesn't have to be something big. We live in a world of comparison, and we go on social media and there are people running ultra marathons and
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff. But for a lot of the young people that we work with, their ultra marathon is getting up and going out for a
Yeah.
5-minute walk, and that's absolutely okay. I work with young people whose goals, when they come to us, say, I just want to be able to walk the dog around the block with my family
Yeah.
again because we've got a new puppy. And there's that family element. And all of a sudden, they're all being more active, and
Mm.
it's I mean, even before I worked for Move, I worked for a different organisation, a community trust, where I actually signposted somebody to Move's 5K Your Way programme. And now all of a sudden, from the inspiration they got from her, and I think it would be fair to say that she wasn't a physically active person before. I mean, now she's incredible. She finished her treatment just less than a year ago, and she's doing 15 miles here and 10K events there and whatever else, and she's just so inspirational. But now her entire family are more active. Her son is running marathons. Her
Yeah.
husband goes away for work and just runs a half marathon before work for fun, like around London, and that's the power of the
Yeah.
movement.
This episode is supported by Move Against Cancer. Move Against Cancer is a UK charity helping anybody impacted by cancer to be more active. They provide free specialist movement and rehabilitation support for young people with cancer. They provide over 125 5K Your Way groups across the country, a wealth of online movement resources, and numerous community-based projects. The benefits of movement when living with or impacted by cancer are endless. Movement helps people rebuild not only strength and fitness, but confidence, community, and mental well-being. Move Against Cancer charity exists to make that support accessible to all. You can find out more or get involved at moveagainstcancer.org. As you say, people are doing incredible long distance endurance events, but actually, for a lot of individuals, their endurance event may just be a 2-minute walk. And I know, for
Mm.
me, when I was struggling with postnatal depression, it literally was that I got out with the pushchair for a 2-minute walk. That was huge. That almost at the time felt bigger than me crossing the finish line in Kona at the Ironman World Championships. So it is all relative, and
Yeah.
it's the aim to stop comparing and look at yourself, isn't it, about what your goal is and your aim, and just take that small step can have a huge difference to yourself and your family.
Absolutely. I think we can sort of look at these goals, and when we're in the thick of it, the thick of that mental health struggle, or the
Mm.
cancer diagnosis, if it's a physical struggle, and we've potentially come out, hopefully, the other side of that, and think, right, we're doing this hard thing to demonstrate. And a lot of fundraising projects and awareness projects now are super duper hard things, back to back Ironman and
Mm.
10-day journeys across the country covering 900 miles, because it has to be something big to capture people's attention.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think for me, and like you said, we might come on to mental health and things in a
Mm.
little bit, but that I know that when I go through a 10-day point-to-point journey across the country, that there are young people over the entire country, over the entire world, that don't get a choice to put themselves through that
No.
pain every day. And whatever they are moving through is way harder than anything that I'm
Mm.
doing that day. And the stuff that I've dealt with in my own brain before, which sounds like you've experienced as well in a little bit of a different way, is I've done harder things than that before, because
Yeah.
that's often way more difficult than actually choosing to put ourselves through these physical challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's come on to it then, because you've touched a little bit on it and we've spoken about the mental health aspect there. And so for you personally, you is it right you're not from a sporting background at all?
No, not really. I actually I have an identical twin sister, and she was the sporty one, if you
Right.
like. And she always played football, and it came a bit more naturally to her. I rode horses, did a little bit of jogging, but I think probably from a place where teenage girls do, feeling like you've got to get yourself a little bit fitter, and went to a couple of after school clubs, but nothing much really, and never excelled at all.
No.
But,
No.
I suppose my entry into sport, if you like, came a little
Mhm.
bit later. I
Right.
originally that my career, if you like, took a little bit of a U-turn in that I originally trained in law and found myself
Oh,
to be
wow.
in a pretty dreamy job for a graduate at that time. Very well paid, traveling all over the place, and it was fabulous, probably until it wasn't, if that
Right.
makes sense, you know?
Yeah.
It was very socially isolating for me.
Mhm.
It was a challenge. It was very intense, surrounded by people very much unlike myself, and if I can say, like, posh middle-aged men in suits, if you like,
Right.
which was
Yep.
a really difficult world at the time, and I don't think I realised at the time that that was such a difficult world for me to be
Yeah.
involved in as a graduate straight from university in an industry that was, sort of there was lots of money involved and the regulation of sport, essentially. I worked in horse racing, but my and I'm so grateful for that
Of course.
time.
Yeah.
But my sister, she worked in a gym and I got a free gym membership at the time and
Good, fair enough.
started to focus my energy on exercise and eating well, or what I thought was well
Right.
at the time. And it went from one training session a day and discovering what was healthy to two sessions to unfortunately using that as a mechanism of controlling my life that I wasn't so happy with in other areas, um, to believing that sort of the less food I could survive on, the better, although again, not realizing it at the time. And of course, people tell you how great you look when you start doing all this stuff and all of that jazz. And all of a sudden, food and exercise became a little bit of a coping mechanism for me, that mechanism of control that we spoke about. And like I say, I didn't really realize that it was an issue until
Yeah.
probably um I can only really pin it back to, and it'd probably been going on for quite a long time before then. But my sister by this time had moved away from the gym and she'd gone out to do a gap year in
Mhm.
Canada. And she was skiing in Canada and we went out to see her. And that's the last time that I remember having a proper menstrual cycle, because I had my period when we were on holiday there. And then when I came back, after I came back, sort of my periods disappeared. And I was like, oh, this is funny. I wonder what's happening with my periods. I've always had, quite regular
Mm.
and this, that, and the
Mm.
other. Um, and I think it was then doing a little bit of research around that and that kind of thing that led me to believe that actually I think I might be doing a little bit too much and not fueling my body enough.
Right.
And
Yeah.
now obviously I'm very aware. I'm very aware of women's health because the training that I've done and that kind of thing. And um hypothalamic amenorrhea for the secondary loss of periods for those people that are not aware, from a low energy availability and all that kind of stuff. And so that's when I can pinpoint it back to. But like I say, I'm sure it was probably happening for quite a long time before then.
Yeah.
So I ended up having a horrible relationship with food, which ultimately led to very disordered eating habits and no time because of work, no social life because of work. But in many ways, I probably socially isolated myself quite a lot,
Mm.
because I was living with depression, and actually I continue to be medicated for that every
Right.
day. Um, and so that's a ongoing mental health. I don't like to use the word struggle, but experience, if you like, that
Yeah. Yeah.
that I manage.
Mhm.
Um, I've been through, without going into huge amounts of details, it's not something that I even really talk to my family about, I suppose, very much, but I've been just about as low as you can probably imagine.
Mm.
And I've worked on that over many years, but I've experienced how physical activity now, although it was kind of it was an issue at the time, and while lots of people look at you and be like, "Oh, you're so fit, you're so great," sometimes I think you have to be quite careful about how you talk to people about that, because
Yeah,
actually you've no
absolutely.
idea what's going on up in their
Yeah.
mind. Um, but now I've experienced how physical activity can make us feel strong and energized, and how we can use that, and how we can use nutrition and other healthy lifestyle habits to feel like the best version of ourselves, no matter where you're at in life. And having
Mhm.
done endurance things, um, I've done marathons. I've done an ultra marathon at this point, and doing triathlon, where you have to fuel yourself
Yeah.
properly. Otherwise, you cannot perform on the day or from day to day in training. Um, I've sort of experienced how great that can feel. And I've changed sort of my path over this time, because I then started to work as a coach, sort of general personal trainer, and then did nutrition, level 5 in advanced nutrition science qualification. Um, and then beyond there, specialized in GP referral and cancer and cardiac rehab. So that's where the cancer rehab stuff comes in,
Right.
which now I'm
Yeah.
so deeply passionate about. But so, and because I wanted to help others to feel as empowered by positive health and well-being as I have, if you like. And I suppose the cancer rehab element of it, I never had a cancer experience specifically as a young person, but I did have a number of years in and out of the oncology ward at Birmingham Children's Hospital.
Right.
Um, I was lucky enough, although going through treatments, medications, tests, surgeries, that anything that I had was going on was found to be benign. But as a young person, seeing the things that I did there, I wonder whether that has led me down to the path that I'm living. I'm not
Mhm.
sure, although that finished probably around about the age of 16. Saw some things that probably leave an impression on you at that time. So I
Absolutely.
wonder if that has contributed to sort of the cancer rehabilitation work that I do with young people today. But long
Yeah.
story long, I guess that's mine.
No, no, it's super. I think that's what a lot of the feedback we get is how useful it is hearing the backstory to how people have got to where they are today.
Mm,
Because as you say, I mean, at the time, it may not have felt that it was anything important or meaningful, or it may have felt actually something quite traumatic and horrible. But later down the line, seeing why that happened and how that shaped your career or what you do and where you go, it's very interesting
yeah.
looking at that backstory. So, and yeah, super inspiring that you've been through difficulties yourself, and challenges. And as you say, you're still coping and dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, but how this has led you down a path of showing other people just how powerful that movement can be is so inspiring, and such an exciting chapter, and ahead of you and with the big race. And so how long have we got until the mammoth challenge that you're doing?
So we're going to start on the 4th of July and hopefully finish on the 13th. Um, so gosh, don't, it's a few months now, isn't it? About 6 months, but so
Yeah.
we'll see. is coming around thick and fast. Do you know what? It's the logistics more than anything that I'm more worried about. It's the, you know, sort of challenges of financing things like fuel and
Mm.
finding accommodation for that time and making sure you're not going to end up on a gravel route and with your road tires and things like that.
So let's talk about that, because I know there are people who are considering doing challenges like this themselves, and it's definitely things that have crossed my mind in the past as well. But was it you who had this initial idea, or where did the idea come from? And then how
Mm,
do you start moving it forward to become a reality?
yeah. Well, we were sitting on a team meeting actually as part of the charity. Um, and there's not a huge amount of us. We're a growing charity. We don't like to say a small charity. We're a growing charity because we're huge. We've actually got over 600 volunteer ambassadors, and
Wow.
the movement is strong. But um, so we were sitting on a team meeting, and there was a few of us in there and talking about this Move More Together campaign that's going to form part of the 10-year celebrations at the charity. And I was just thinking, because I'm relatively new, I've been in touch with Move for a really, really long time, but relatively new to the full-time contracted
Okay.
staff, so June last year. But I feel so unbelievably lucky now. I mentioned my twin sister earlier, and she's always been this person, not always, that's not true, but she's been this person recently where she lives and breathes what she does. She loves it. She's so passionate about what she does.
Oh,
And
that's
that's
great.
so inspirational to me. And I always
Yeah.
thought, will I ever be that person? Will I ever find something that I am desperate to go to work for every day? You know, I get excited on a Monday to think
Mm,
what's coming up today. And I thought, I don't think that's ever going to be me. Well, I feel so unbelievably grateful now to work for Move, for a charity, for a team, but also for a cause that I love so
mhm.
much. And I thought I really, really want to do something for this charity, for this community, to raise awareness. I really, really strongly believe that physical activity should be spoken about more by healthcare
Yeah,
professionals, that it should be
absolutely.
part actually of the standardized cancer care pathway. Um, and I feel really strongly about talking about that message. And I thought, how can I do this in a big way? And I think we spoke earlier about how people do such huge things now that it has to be something. My dad said to me yesterday, I was actually looking at your route, 'cause I shared it with him, and he said, you know, you're like doing some really big cycles on one day and then you're going to run as well. Like, he said, I didn't realize it was going to be on this. I was like, yeah, you have to do pretty big things now to draw people's attention.
Yeah,
Bless him.
absolutely.
And so I thought I need to do something big to make people listen to the
Mhm.
message of Move. And so I thought, what can I do? How can I do this to give back to the charity that has given me so much, but also I see the great work that they do every
Yeah,
day.
of course.
Um, and so that's where the idea was born, naturally, swim, bike, run, as somebody that does triathlon now. Um, and I thought about a number of different things. I thought about Land's End to John O'Groats. I thought about just loads of different ways in which I could make this happen. And I can't actually remember. I think my brain was just whirring around and I can't remember how I came across this idea. It just kind of happened naturally. And now I do not have the first idea about planning anything like this or whatever, but I uh, sort of Google has been my friend. Like, what do I need to do this? And I should make more use of like AI probably. It would probably like
Yeah,
create me
absolutely.
like a program to, you know, plan all of this out. But um I'm lucky enough to have the support. I've spoken about my family a lot, but I have the support of the most wonderful family, and we actually are starting to do a little bit of work together. Both my mum and my sister work in volunteering, so they're quite aware of like fundraising and stuff like
Nice.
that. My partner is hugely, hugely supportive, my biggest cheerleader, um, and has a big van and is going to follow me around the
Brilliant.
country despite falling off his own bike yesterday, bless him,
Oh
and now he's
no.
in splints on both wrists, but here we are.
Oh no.
um, and so hopefully by then he'll be fixed and able to drive. But so he's going to be helping out, and he's a big cyclist himself, albeit a mountain biker, but I can absolutely 100% trust him to,
Okay.
if something happens with my bike, he'll be there and he'll fix it, and remind me to eat and hopefully
Yeah.
keep the morale up and stuff like that, and just be there with kit and whatever. So I'm lucky enough that him and his business really are helping support me with
Oh
that
wow.
from sort of a logistics and sponsorship point of view.
Great.
Um, and yeah, so the coaching, I'm lucky enough to work with Dan from Club Co-Action, who is doing a lot of all of my coaching, strength, swimming, biking and running, and at the moment just building up a really strong aerobic base, hopefully. And yeah, so the planning is just very much, right, where am I going on that day? And I've looked on Google Maps on all the routes, and um, is my bike going to be able to cope with that? Do I need gravel tires? Do I need to sort this out, that out? Am I running in the right shoes even? Like, can I swim in Loch Lomond at that time of the day? Like, it's all just, and I'm sure I will come across things during the challenge where I'm like, I didn't think of that. I was actually
Of
jogging this
course.
morning and I thought, I'm going to come across, this is going to be a learning curve, I know, because I've never planned anything like this before. But it's, I think, what's the worst that could happen?
But I mean, yeah, I mean, you've got your team around you who
Yeah,
no doubt will be cheering you on and helping with kit and things like that. And there will
yeah.
be challenges that come up because, I'm sure that even in the big comic relief challenges or things like that, there will be issues that come up. But yeah, it's you're having that team around you to help get you there is huge. And you're running to the different treatment centres. So do you think that there will be some of potentially the people you work with who will be joining you?
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so. So, running and cycling between treatment centres, and I hope, even if you, the young people that I work with, or ambassadors, or anybody really that wants to support the project, to come for a little bit of morale, come for 1K or come for 150K on the bike. I hope very much that it's accessible for everybody. And at these treatment centres, we hope to have little hubs, like when we set off or when we come back, with little events that give us sort of the opportunity to sort of, not like sort of welcome me in, if you like, but
Yeah, I get you.
almost hospital visits, if you like this
Mm,
is what we do, and
yeah,
um talk about the importance of physical activity with maybe the young people that are being treated there at the
yeah,
moment, things like
yeah,
that. And we're lucky enough to have some really, really committed referrers into the Move Online
yeah,
program, rehabilitation program. And so we've chosen those hospitals strategically to include those really
mm,
supportive partners. And I hope that we can work with those referrers to make, a little bit of noise around it, and,
yeah,
something a bit different and fun for their young people as well, that
yeah.
they might be able to get involved in.
Yeah, and what an inspiration to those young people, seeing you, and it is welcoming you in kind of after some
Oh,
grueling miles out there. I'm
yeah.
sure it'll be welcome, big cheers to celebrate you coming into each centre, but such huge inspiration for those young people. It's exciting.
Yeah, I hope so. I just don't. The the thing around all of this really is, and you never see yourself as an inspiration, do you? You just don't. But and I listen to all of your podcasts, and I'm like, oh my goodness, these women, they're unbelievable. But you the one thing that I wouldn't want it to become is young people, or anybody really, wherever they're at, whether that's a cancer experience, a mental health journey they're moving
Mhm.
through, or none of that, anything. I wouldn't want people to think that, movement, or I don't really like to refer to it as exercise, because
Okay.
sometimes exercise can put people off. People think, oh, exercise isn't for me. I'm not an exerciser. I don't want people to think that movement has to look massive. Like we
No.
said earlier, if that's a 2-minute walk with the pushchair,
Yeah.
that's absolutely amazing. And I want
Yeah.
everybody to be able to come and join and be a part of
Yeah.
this, rather than, if that's a 2-minute walk and we walk into the TYA, Teenage and Young Adult Treatment Centre in Oxford, because there's somebody who wants to walk and is not quite able to jog,
Yeah.
then that might be me at the time, might not be able to jog. But I want them to be able to do that and think this is amazing for me
Yeah.
today, rather than, oh, I can't do a 900-mile journey across the UK, and so
No.
this isn't for
No.
me.
But I think that's the beauty of the event, is it is going to be a community, people getting together. There'll be people, people might be scooting it, or people might be just doing a
Oh,
short
that'd
part
be
of it,
so cool.
walking
I'd
it,
not
that
thought of
type
that.
of thing. But that's the beauty of Move, isn't it? That it can be
Yeah.
anyway. And I think, like you say, taking that word exercise out of it, because I think exercise, people think about, you've got to get fit, you've got to lose weight. Whereas this isn't about that, is it? It's not
No.
about that element. It's about movement and how that can benefit you mentally, and with illnesses and that type of thing. And yeah, it's so exciting. I cannot wait to see it all play out. And so we've mentioned it, but how is your training going, and how are you starting to train for back to back to back to back to back long endurance days?
Um, Training's going well, actually. I'm really, really enjoying it. I am desperate to get back out on the bike in the fresh air. I
Yeah.
am obsessed with riding my bike. I love it. I mean, I was lucky enough, unfortunately, last year. I mean, the bike that I started my triathlon life in is on my turbo upstairs now still. And I was gifted that bike for free. It's old,
Oh, I
it's
love that.
ropey, it's goodness. It's yeah, a lot of people have been like, I cannot believe you're training on that. But it's old. But I was lucky enough in some ways. We unfortunately lost my nana quite quickly last year
Oh,
to her own cancer journey, and she helped with that, fund a really, really, by triathlon standards, people spend thousands on bikes. By
they
triathlon
do.
standards, it's not, a fancy all singing, all dancing bike, but I love my bike. So I'm desperate to get back outside on the bike, because it's sitting in the shed, sort of gathering dust. And I'm so excited to go back out on it, because yeah, just excited. But so that's where training's at. But I am actually one of these people that just loves being on the turbo. I
Yeah.
love the routine of getting up in the morning before my partner's awake, before the dog's ready to lift his head off the sofa, and having my coffee, having a little bit of fuel, and getting on the turbo. But I did did York Marathon last October, and I've never been an
Right.
injured runner, but sort of damaged a couple of ligaments in my ankle.
Mm.
I did like a team ultra marathon just before, and I don't think it liked the stop start and that kind of thing. So that was the first real injury I've ever had to manage.
Hmm.
So we're working our way back really slowly with running, sort of zone 1, zone 2 stuff at the moment. But coming up for the end of this week, I'm seeing a nearly hour run on my program. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
Swimming, as I know for most people in triathlon, is a
Yeah.
journey. Is
Yep.
a journey. Some days I love swimming, and usually it's dependent on how busy the pool is.
Absolutely. Yep.
Um, but other days, swimming, I'm like, why am I so slow? But actually, I have to keep reminding myself that this isn't about moving fast.
Yeah.
It's just building that really solid aerobic base at the moment, and perhaps doing a couple of double days where I'm doing strength and swimming in the same day, or I'm on the turbo and then doing a gentle sort of 30 minutes run off the bike. And then
Uh-huh.
as we work towards the event, I've got a couple of events that I'm doing in the run up. So a couple of middle distance triathlons just to build that volume in the day. And they'll be seen at the time as just sort of hard training days
Yeah.
out. And I'm lucky enough through Women in Tri to be able to cycle Attack Caledonia as well, and Hampshire Hilly 100 the week after. So just building like back to back hilly cycles, and
Yeah.
yeah, lots of volume. So
Oh, and it's great that you can put some events as part of
yeah,
that, because again, that community feel of racing with others can massively help break up that training plan, can't it? So,
yeah, yeah.
oh, and it is so exciting, and I think just yeah, the work that you're doing to support young people who are going through just some absolutely brutal situations and their families is so inspiring. So thank you for what you are doing. And if people are wanting to follow your story and follow the event in July, what's going to be the best way to do that?
Yeah, so we'll be documenting. Obviously, I said that the charity itself is 10 this year. And so Move Against Cancer charity on all the socials, Instagram and that kind of thing will sort of document the whole of the year, really, things that lots of people can get involved in. But me personally, I'm Anna Louise Coaching on Instagram, so people can follow sort of my journey specifically on there. A little bit of training content, food, dogs, that kind of stuff, and a little bit of coaching stuff, like a little bit of tidbits around cancer rehab, but general sort of physical activity stuff as well.
Brilliant. So yeah, I'm sure lots of people will want to follow and see how you get on that event. And if people did want to come and join you for an element of the race, what's the best way of them arranging that?
Yeah, so just follow along on socials, and as we get a little bit closer to the event, there'll be details around where we'll be on what day and how people can come along. And I anticipate that we'll just get back to people and say, and if they say I can come and join you from this village, we'll
Mhm.
arrange a meetup time, and maybe a group of us will go. Or there's a cycling club, for example, that wants to join us in Cardiff to come to Oxford, then we'll just arrange a meetup time and see how it goes. So yes, more details will be on my social media rather than Moves
Yeah.
closer to the time. So follow along.
Right. And so we often finish the podcast with just asking that if there is a person who is potentially going through a cancer diagnosis or experiencing cancer within their lives at the moment, what advice would you give to them?
A really interesting question, actually, because it's something that I spoke to our young people about. We have a community of young people that have been through the program or are going through the program at the moment, just so, again, as we said earlier, they can chat to people similar to them. And
Yeah.
it's something that I asked them last week, actually. So
Oh,
I
did
might actually
you?
come up, like, talk about the theme that they came up
Yeah,
with. Because I
that would be
said to them, what
great.
would you tell another young person who has just been diagnosed with cancer? So they're just starting out with their cancer experience. But I suppose you could relate this to anybody
Hmm.
going through something challenging or whatever. And it was very strongly, and I think we've alluded to it a few times throughout our chat today, but to meet yourself where you're at. And if that is not where you were 2 years ago, that's absolutely okay. If you're not as fit as you once were, it might be that you're setting new personal bests into your new different circumstances. And while that's sometimes really painful to have to
Mm,
accept, and there
yeah,
is a time where you can be sad and upset and whatever about that, and your feelings are always valid and that kind of thing. But actually, if we can then sort of pick ourselves up and accept, okay, this is where I'm at right now. I'm going to make the best of my situation, whatever that looks like. Um, I think life and mental health, everything is just going to
mm,
start to improve. And we see it day in, day out, where our young people, they have to meet themselves where they're at. Otherwise, you'd lie in bed all day and you'd feel sorry for yourself. And
yeah.
that's not an option for a lot of our young people. So yeah, meet yourself where you're at, whatever that looks like today. If you used to run 5K in 25 minutes, but you can't at the moment, that's okay. Let's just start really, really small and build up from there. And that's not to say it can't come back. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't, but you'll feel great for doing something, no matter how big or small that is.
That, I think, will resonate with so many people. Obviously, the people who are going through cancer, but actually, I think, as you say, that is such golden advice for anybody who is going through any situation at the moment, is that accepting where you are and, yeah, just taking that step to keep moving forward. So, oh, I love that. I'm gonna write that on my quote board as a good
Oh,
motivational quote to help power me through. So,
yeah.
oh, Anna, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast today and sharing your story. And I mean, I will be in touch closer to the time to wish you good luck and things. And maybe we could get you back on after you've done the race just to feedback how it all went and how it was achieving that toughest finish line of 900 miles around the UK. But thank you so much for coming on. And yeah, good luck with all the planning, all the training. I hope injuries stay away. And I can't wait to see you cross that finish line.
I would love to come back and tell you how it all went. But thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's very much appreciated.
No worries.
Thank you.